Voice of the Sea, learning from experts across the ocean.
Welcome to Voice of the Sea. In this episode, we're at the Etpison Museum in Koror, Palau, with Museum Director Mandy Etpison. Mandy will show us around the museum and talk about life in Palau and its unique culture.
My father-in-law, he was president of Palau from 88 to 92. He passed away already, but he donated the land for this building and he wanted to do a museum, but unfortunately before we were able to open he passed away. But so we dedicated the building to him.
And how long has the museum been open?
Since 98. Yeah. Of course it's an ever-changing, we try to do different things every year. We have a wood carver here that works for the museum. So we actually did one twice the size of this, which is at the president's office. I don't know if you'll have a chance to go up there, but it's sitting in the entrance of the Minister of State office. So every visiting foreign politician comes through there, and we have a sign there for the campaign and about the Dugongs. So this is a smaller one. Another one was donated to Taiwan for their 100-year anniversary. It was Palau's present to Taiwan. So the president's been helping us sort of spread the word on the Dugongs.
How big is this carving in relation to adult dugong?
It's about life size. Yeah.
And then this is the way that the baby would actually ride on the back of the mother?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's just beautiful.
Yeah, while we were doing the campaign, they got so used to the helicopter sound that they would actually like turn on their back and look up at you from the water. It's really, especially the babies. It's really cute. So this is the dessert that traditionally they would serve. So it's a local almond nut that they boil with sugar and honey, and it's served like this to the chiefs.
And this is in place of now actually catching and serving dugong meat?
Well, they would do both, but now they usually only do this because the dugongs are difficult and it's illegal to catch them. But the way they prepare the meat of the dugongs, they can make it taste like beef or veal. So sometimes it's served at funerals or other things. People don't even realize what they're eating. That's the sad part.
Wow.
So traditionally, that's how they would wear the bracelet on the black and white photos. You can see they're wearing the dugong vertebrae. That's the actual vertebrae there. Oh yeah, that's where you can see the baby was looking up at the helicopter. That's actually taken from a helicopter through the water. It was a really clear day.
Wow.
You want to be on camera, Elvis? Come. This is Elvis. He's our biggest attraction at the museum. He has a thing for blonde women because his first owner was blonde also. So.
Hello, Elvis. Can you say hello?
Keep him away from your necklace though, because he loves shiny stuff.
Oh yeah, he's looking at it, isn't he? Oh, Elvis is a pretty bird.
One of our best-selling items is a stuffed animal like him because the people want to take him home.
Is he from Palau here? And
he was taken from the Rock Islands by Palauan, and he was stolen from that guy's house and sold on the street. And he ended up with one of our dive instructors, and when they left the island, I took him. So he's been with us for about 10 years now.
What kind of bird is he?
He's a sulfur-crested cockatoo. He's actually considered a pest here because they're not endemic. They were brought in during the German time. And they live in the Rock Islands, but they destroy the endemic trees, so they're not protected. So this is the traditional childbirth ceremony, sort of shown in photos. Main reason being they're quite secretive about it. It's one of the things they really hang on to, their tradition. It's really nice. Young girls go to college nowadays, they still come back for this ceremony. So in the old days, when a girl got pregnant, she would go back to her mom's family and be away from the husband almost a year and go through all these medicinal treatments. And after the baby was born, she has to lock herself away with a medicine woman and go through these herbal baths that are supposed to cure the skin and make her feel better.
So it happens directly after the birth?
Yeah, nowadays, because they can't, of course, nobody wants to stay away from their husband for over a year nowadays. So now they do it after the birth, and the number of days depends on the rank of the mother's clan. So it's anywhere from like 4 to 10 days. And after she goes through that, she will dress up in the traditional grass skirt and show herself to the in-laws. And they sort of, it can be a wedding ceremony, a birth at the same time, so there's always an exchange of food and money between the families. And the in-laws will come and put the traditional Palauan money on her neck, and that's like a sign they accept her and the baby into the family. And then behind the scenes, the parents exchange the turtle shell plates, the hawksbill plates, as well as the traditional money with US dollars. So that's something that still takes place today. But of course, as a tourist, it's not something you can schedule. But it's a really nice event to witness.
And this is
That's sort of how
replica.
it looks when they're preparing her in the hut, yeah. And the medicine women have their own recipes, secret recipes for herbs. Some will be for the black marks or the stretch marks on the skin, and they use ginger and different oils. And they each have their own special recipe for that.
Did you go through that when you had your son?
They wanted me to, but I did the herbal part, but I didn't do the coming out part because my family was not here, of course. And I'm Dutch. I didn't see myself in a grass skirt, but it's not my culture. But it's very nice that they still do that, though. And the payments are interesting because there's a payment for the marriage, there's a payment for the girl, and then there's a payment, or the girl or boy, whatever the baby is, and then there's a payment for the damage done to the mom's body, which is quite interesting. It's a uniquely Palauan tradition. So this is some of the traditional money throughout the Pacific. Of course, Yap, because it's famous for the stone money and
And the stone money from Yap, it actually was mined or taken from Palau
yeah.
and brought to Yap.
Yeah, and they actually probably based in on, there was some connection between Yap and the Solomons, because if you look at the Yap stone money, the original ones were quite small like this. They got bigger as they got foreign tools and ships to bring it to Yap, but originally the smaller ones were like that size. And now the value went back again to the smaller ones being more valuable because they're the oldest ones. And the biggest piece in Yap that you see there on the photograph is not so valuable because they used metal tools and a foreign ship to bring it to Yap. But in the Solomons, they made the same kind of discs that are also considered money there, but not out of limestone. They made them out of clamshell, like the clam behind you. You can imagine the size of the clam you would need to get a thick ring like that. So that might be where the Yapese got the idea, because the Solomons have had that type of money for a long time. And then this is the Palauan types of money. The glass beads didn't come from here. They were probably brought by Chinese trade ships, and they're quite old. The beads are like a glass paste, and they were made in the Egyptian style. And then the Palauans start cutting up the bracelets, so they end up with these pieces that they wear that used to be bracelets.
I always wondered why they were in that, some of them were in that shape, and I didn't know.
And those big pieces each had an individual name and a history, and wars were fought over one of those pieces of money. It's quite interesting. So these are some of the high clan money that are famous here. Those are the different types they use, and if there's a special occasion, you may see one of the older ladies wearing a whole necklace, which is quite rare. And if you see the young girls now wearing a whole necklace, it's usually not real. They found some of the illegal grave sites in the Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia where they find gold and those beads. So they've been importing them, and it's kind of mixed up right now. And they probably came from the same place originally.
How interesting.
And then another type of money is the hawksbill turtle plates, which is considered the women's money. So whenever there's an exchange of money, it's presented under a leaf on one of those plates. And during funerals, as you can see on the photo, they will get the plates from the in-laws, and they will be given as a payment to the family members who work during the funeral or the childbirth by cooking food and things like that. They get an envelope with US dollars and one or more of those plates.
And I understand that there's a moratorium right now on killing the hawksbill turtle, so that the plates in circulation are, they've already been in circulation. They're not adding to the...
They're still adding to them, unfortunately, but it has definitely helped because we've seen the turtles come back at the dive sites. They've become more friendly, but you don't see the really big ones because you can imagine each plate is one piece of the shell. Mm-hmm. You see how small the pieces of that shell are, and then you see the size of one of those plates. You can imagine the size that turtle must have been.
Sure.
So but the moratorium is definitely helping, but it's not being done anymore totally, because the plates is a very strong part of their custom and they're still using them today. So like if something goes on in my husband's family, and then I receive those plates, whether you want to or not, you end up with these plates, and then if something would happen in my family, I would end up giving them out. It's like a constant exchange.
It must have been interesting being Dutch and integrating yourself into the Palauan culture.
Yeah. It's a very strong culture, so I think living here you always stay an outsider in some ways, but that's a good thing. That's why they've been able to hang on to their culture in spite of the Germans, the Spanish, the Japanese, and the American influence. So I kind of like that.
How did you come to Palau originally?
I was the first PADI instructor when the Palau Pacific Resort opened in '84, and met my husband, and he was my boss, and I'm still here.
Very good. And this is one of the bais, the meeting houses?
Yeah, this is one of the most tourists think that this is how the Palauans lived, but this was actually like a clubhouse. Each village had clubhouses like this for the males, the females, and the chiefs. And some of the clubhouses were only for the chiefs, for special war meetings and councils and whatever, but some of the other clubhouses for the younger men were sort of like a school in a lot of ways. They were taught about fishing, building, sex also, because they were sort of like prostitution houses in some ways, which they don't really like to talk about nowadays because of all the missionaries. But their custom was to steal girls from other villages, or to basically pay girls from other villages to come and live in those houses for several months to educate the boys. So that was part of their culture too. At the same time, they're very strict against incest here because their population was so small. So they have these dilugai, they call it, these statues, which you see a bigger one on the wall behind the house there. And those were basically a sign against incest. They have a legend about a brother and a sister, and hanging up these statues was sort of a sign like that's not accepted in the village. And even today, they're very strict on like you don't date your cousins, even if it's like a fifth or a sixth cousin, that's still considered close family here because of the small population. So they've always encouraged actually Palauans marrying outsiders. So almost every foreign ship or traders that came in, it was quite normal for them to marry into Palauan families. Let's go upstairs. Downstairs is only fishing. So far, it's not too noisy. This is one of our most popular displays, is our whale.
Oh.
It's free for all Palauan schools, so we get a lot of field trips here, and they usually think it's a dinosaur, so it's quite funny because they've never seen anything like it.
What kind of whale skeleton?
It's probably a minke or Brutus, we're not quite sure because they're quite similar in size and bone structure, but once or twice a year we usually get dead whales that float into the reef, either sperms or these, and they're usually killed by orcas. And then we have tiger sharks that follow them into the reef and start feeding on them. That was actually this whale that you see on the photos.
Wow. But it was already so decomposed that you weren't sure exactly.
Yeah, you can tell. It's hard to see. It was at least a week old. So we buried the bones and then puzzled it back together again after 2 years. The smell was unbelievable.
So I see that you also have some photos of the dugong as well as the manta rays, and you mentioned that you're now starting a project with the manta rays.
Yeah, we sort of did all the awareness part we can do as far as the dugongs. It's a Palauan problem, so the government agencies hopefully will keep the ball rolling. We're working on legislation to make the enforcement easier, but we keep trying to reprint the booklets, keep the pictures up, trying to keep the interest going, basically. We've started on the Manta Rays. That's sort of a tourism issue because we have one site that's a known cleaning, feeding, and birthing site for manta rays. And the tourism pressure is getting crazy right now. There's over 200 people in the water there every day now.
Oh my goodness.
So we're chasing them away. So last year I started a website about them just to sort of learn more about them and share what we know here. We've identified over 170 here in Palau, manta rays, because they're very easy to ID by their bellies.
Looking at the individual marks that they have.
Yeah, taking photographs of the bellies and then comparing them. We know we probably have hundreds more because that's only from 4 or 5 different sites, and only 2 of those sites are known dive sites. So we're trying to find more sites so we can kind of diversify people away from that one site, because it's a very important site because they're giving birth there. We see newborns there every year, and right now they're slowly moving away. It's just too many people. So we got funding for time-lapse cameras for 10 sets, so we're setting those at different channels right now to try and see when and where the mantas show up, so we can, start identifying more sites. So that's what we're working on now. It's amazing actually that Palau is a very small area, but from comparing it, we probably have more manta rays here than Yap or Hawaii combined, which we never knew because nobody knew where to look for them, basically. So
when you said 170 or so, I was shocked at that number. I expected you to say 50 or 60, but it's a lot.
And that's just 1 year and two people taking pictures. It's one lady that lives on a yacht and myself. So that's, if we have more people and the time-lapse cameras, I think we probably have a lot more than we think.
And understand a little bit more about where they go and their
Yeah,
use
that's
of
the key
habitat.
thing. They go way out of the reef, so the only time you get to see them is when they come in to feed or mate or give birth or get cleaned. So the cleaning stations are sort of the key. If you find out where they like to hang out, then it's easy to identify them by pictures. And yeah, the local hardwood is beautiful. Unfortunately, it tends to crack in the air conditioning. So the most popular wood for people bringing it outside is mahogany because it doesn't crack. So we always advise people to buy mahogany, but it's not a native tree here. So the mahogany is from the Japanese time. They planted a lot. Basically, it shows some of the local legends, and it's the only really traditional Palauan souvenir because they used to write their stories on the bais, on their buildings. So that's sort of how they recorded their history, special events and stories from the past. So the most popular ones are used for the storyboards. For instance, the egg-laying cycle of the turtle at Nemalis, that's one of the famous stories. And the spider you see there, that's the symbol for childbirth.
And the breadfruit.
The breadfruit tree, that's another famous story. There's about like 30 to 50 stories that are the most popular.
The University of Hawaii Sea Grant College Program, helping coastal communities of Hawaii and the Pacific through research, education, and outreach. serving the community, from elementary to graduate students. Hawaii Sea Grant.
Exploring Our Fluid Earth is the dynamic curriculum developed by the University of Hawaii's Curriculum Research and Development Group. The award-winning Fluid Earth and Living Ocean textbooks are now interactive and online. New activities, updated content, and a teacher community. Exploring Our Fluid Earth is now freely available. Find out more at exploringourfluidearth.org.
Turn your love of the ocean into a lifelong career. Join NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, as we unlock the secrets in the deep oceans, track rapidly moving storms, model climate trends, protect and preserve our marine resources, and so much more. It's all in a day's work at NOAA. Find a career that makes a world of difference, enriching life through science, service, and stewardship. NOAA.
The Curriculum Research and Development Group in the College of Education at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. CRDG's training roots go back over 40 years. Through professional development programs, curriculum workshops, research on teaching methodology, individualized school and district training, and so much more. The Curriculum Research and Development Group, improving schools, improving education. CRDG.
Healthy oceans are critical to our cultural, economic, and environmental sustainability in Hawaii. The ocean serves as a source of water, food, medicine, jobs, transportation, recreation, and energy. It controls climate and weather. Kosi Island Earth aims to share this ocean awareness by partnering with local scientists and educators to engage communities and schools in active science learning for an ocean-literate population. Kosi Island Earth is working to establish new avenues for connecting research scientists with educators and communities. Kosi Island Earth is enhancing the science and ocean literacy of our island residents and visitors. Kosi Island Earth is connecting scientific research, traditional knowledge, and ocean policy. Kosi Island Earth, bringing together university, government, research, and community partners to improve science education and ocean stewardship in Hawaii.